Hey, I hope you're doing well. McCullough Knives here. I wanted today to kind of talk to you quickly about my philosophy about the type of edges I put on my pocket knives. And I've talked about this before, but I see so many pocket knives now that are basically sharpened pry bars. For me, it's about geometry and a good balance between sharpness and aggression. And what I mean, and this is a pocket knife I took out of my pocket. This is an ABL blade, and ABL is not known for being like the most edge retention steel out there. It's a nice tough steel, very fine carbide, but it doesn't hold an edge forever, which I don't really care about. But I'm not even sure what the thickness of that is. Let's find out real quick. At the back, I know at the edge, it's about 10 thousandths. Thickest part of the spine, we're looking at 71 thousandths. So nice thin slip joint there. So 71 thousandths at the spine, and the edge is about 10 thousandths behind the cutting edge. Not super thin edge, but fairly thin edge compared to a lot of what you see. And this knife, now, like most of my knives, I don't go over 600 grit,
grits,
not 6,000
and I don't
drop
them.
I kind of like a nice balance between aggression and slicing. And I find that a 600 grit gives me a nice balance for that. It's also easy to maintain and resharpen. The sharper that you make a knife, that sharpness doesn't last long. So think about that sharpness kind of dulls, and at what point does that dullness no longer cut? A more aggressive edge is kind of like a sawtooth, and it will continue to cut. And again, even when it stops cutting, you're not having to put as much effort into it to resharpen it. So if I go from a 600 grit to a 4,000 grit, I've got to do a whole lot of work. But if I stop at a 600 grit, I don't have to do as much work. So thin and aggressive is what I want. This is one I'm working on right now, and at this stage, it's about 10 thousandths behind the non-existent cutting edge, and it's actually going to be thinner once I get finished hand sanding it and actually establishing an edge on it. You see a lot of people talking about how sharp their knives are, and they'll break out copy paper. Copy paper is really not hard to cut, even with a thick knife. So don't be fooled about, oh, look how sharp my knife is, cutting something like copy paper. Look at the medium they're cutting. Now, this is not the sharpest knife in the world. Doesn't have like the finest edge, but it still can cut something maybe not as clean as it could if I really wanted to sit there and work on it. But this is just a Walmart napkin, and I can still cut this. Again, it's not going to be super clean, but it will cut that Walmart napkin with that, what I call working edge on it. Now, yes, a lot of people will sit there and fuss and fuss and fuss, and they can make that little knife cut like a laser, but how long is that little laser going to last? I don't really see the point in it. So geometry and aggressive edge, stock thickness, you'll have so much more pleasure in your cutting knife as far as cutting and slicing. Now, can these little edges take the abuse that these really thick knives can? No, they can't. But a knife is not really meant, in my opinion, to do that. A knife is made to cut and slice. It's not made to be a pry bar. It's not made to be a chisel. It's a cutting, slicing implement. So take it for what it's worth. When you see people break out their copy paper and they got their really thick knives, you're like, oh, look at this, look at this. I mean, honestly, that's not impressive. This knife, when it even gets dull, it can cut copy paper. It may not be as clean as it could be, but that geometry and the blade thickness will allow it to cut that. Now, you take a really thick knife, once it starts getting dull, it's going to start really ripping that copy paper. Now, will this rip it too? Sure, it'll rip it, but it's still going to cut it better than that thick knife. So for me, thin stock, thin grind, and again, this grind's not super, I've had this for a while, it's not super thin anymore because that's thin, about 10 thousandths behind the cutting edge, and something like a 600 grit edge, which gives me that good balance between aggression and cutting, slicing, gives me a really pleasurable cutting tool to use. So take it for what it's worth, but when you watch these people with their super sharp knives, go, how long is that super sharpness going to last? How long did it take you to get that knife to that sharpness? Is that something I want to waste time doing? Is it something that, one, if you enjoy doing it, do it. But, you know, if you're actually using a tool, is it going to be beneficial to you? So, again, take it for what it's worth. I hope you're having a great day. And yesterday was Thanksgiving. Yeah, yesterday was, no, what's the day? Saturday? Today's Saturday. So Thursday was Thanksgiving. So I hope you had a great Thanksgiving if you enjoy that. So take care.